Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We are considering the second of the yamas, the Satya, as Vrata. Again, let me commence by saying today that this is not moral ethical principle, because moral ethical principle are practiced not considering any austerity, what you call as auspiciousness. It is just a norm to a practice, and there is nothing of the nature of auspiciousness. Whereas in Satya Vrata, it is auspiciousness. So it's not merely ending up by true speaking or truthful speaking, because to be speaking truthful, we don't need auspiciousness. We only need morality and ethicality. But here the Satya is a Vrata. On the same basis, we also should understand Ahimsa as a Vrata. It needs auspiciousness in the mind. The mind must be permeated and subsumed by auspiciousness, which has its ethos. But to practice ahimsa on moral ethical plane, we just need to have a motor restraint. So, as we saw during the end of last session, Saesa Sarvabhuta-hitam pravrutta na bhutopaghataya. So, the organ of speech, imagine how auspicious people would be using it. And that is how it is supposed to be used in Vrata of Satya. That is why this principle of Satya has enormous support of Veda Dharma, Vaidic Dharma. I recall a verse from Mahabharata Shanti Parva, which is the 12th of the 18 Parvas. The chapter 329 and the 13th verse says, Satyasya Vachan shreyaha Satyat api hitam vadet Yat bhuta hitam atyantam etat satyam matam mama. The sage says, as to what is Satya for me, he says, Satyasya Vachanam shreyaha. There must be highest and supreme good in Satyam. Satyat api hitam vadet. And there must be also hitam. And Sarvabhuta-hitam is the most important factor for those who are with very auspicious, sanctified, pure mind. They would always consider this aspect, Sarvabhuta-hitam. Hitam, the good for all beings. So, the point is, the Satya that we are discussing is not a moral ethical principle, but a Vrata, which needs auspiciousness. So the Shastras have tried to define this Satya that comes in Vaidic Dharma, the Dharma of the law, the conduct of the law, conduct of the people of the law, the sages and seers of the law. And this definition you get in Mahabharata, where I just now mentioned in the same passage, we get the mention of Satya. And then later in Manusmriti 4.138, and this is oft quoted, Manusmriti is oft quoted when it comes to Satya Dharma. Satyambruyaat, Priyambruyaat, na bruyat asatyam apriyam, Priyam chana Anrutambruyat Esha Dharma Sanatanaha. So Satya is a dharma and Sanatana Dharma. So Satyambruyaat, Priyambruyaat. Don't just learn and practice to speak the truth, but try to learn to speak the truth in such a way that it will be Priyam. It will not be bitter. Like we are used to saying this, the truth is always bitter. But the bitter things can become sweet in kitchen. They can be prepared in such a way that the bitterness will be mitigated, and not only that, it can become sweet. By you using something like jaggery to that preparation, it becomes sweet. So bitter can become sweet. So the Sanatana Dharma, as mentioned by Manu, he says the truth should not be just a naked and only truth. It should be so spoken in such a way, in such a language, in such a situation, in such a condition that it won't be piercing or it won't be bitter to take it. So Satyam can be spoken that way. So one needs to have skill to speak the truth. And never to speak asatyam and apriyam. We will not like to hear something that is really piercing. So Satya should be so spoken that it is not piercing and it is comforting. So that is what, as I said, that one needs to be a seer, a sage, a saint, a rishi, a muni to be speaking the truth, because they have the power and they have the skill to put the truth across without creating bitterness. And that is why it is a vrata. Not everyone can be adhering to vrata. So that is what is the Esha Dharma Sanatanaha described by Manu. So you just cannot have courage to speak the truth. You just cannot have knowledge, true knowledge to speak the truth, or courage to speak the truth. You must have such a language that the language will not create any hurt for the listener. It won't be bitter. It necessarily need not be bitter. So we have to develop the oratory qualification to be speaking the truth, and not just the knowledge of truth to be speaking the truth, or the courage to be speaking the truth. We need the skill. So when it comes to vrata, this care has to be taken. If you have to just speak the truth for the sake of truth, you don't need any such quality. You can speak the truth for the sake of speaking truth. But that is the moral ethical principle of truth, normative principle of truth. You don't need certain qualifications to speak normative truth or truth normatively. So Satya, therefore it is a tapas to be speaking the Satya, not the truth. To speak the truth, you don't have to be in austerities, you don't have to be vratastha. You don't need even tapasya. Without any tapasya, you can speak the truth because you know the truth. What are the austerities behind your truth? There are no austerities necessarily. But when it comes to Satya Vrata, it entails some Satya, the tapas, and also austerity. It is a vrata and therefore austerity as well. Anyway, let's proceed further on this. Now, sometimes when you speak the truth, there is unity and fidelity between mind and speech. There is no concord, there is no tussle, there is no battle between mind and speech when you speak the truth. So that is called sallagnata, or fidelity, unity in vak and manas. So this is how the Satya Vrata is, because many times we speak the truth because we are forced to speak the truth. In mind we don't want to divulge the truth, but circumstances force us to speak the truth. So there is a discord between mind and speech. So many times the mind wants to speak the truth, the oratory organ doesn't speak the truth, or whenever the oratory organ is wanting to speak the truth, the mind is not supporting it. So mind is in discord, there is lack of fidelity. So we experience this many times, lack of fidelity in mind and speech when we speak the truth. We want to speak the truth, but we speak the untruth. We speak the truth, but we want to speak the untruth in our minds. So this fidelity between the speech and mind would be found in Satya Vrata. I recall that Shanti mantra, Vag me manasi sthitaha, Mag me manasi pratisthitaha, Mano me vachi pratishthitam. Let my mind be established in speech and the speech be established in mind. Vang me manasi pratisthita, Mano me vachi pratishthitam. This is what you find in Satya Vrata, that there is no discord, there is absolute fidelity between the mind and the speech. So Vrata needs that. Any mutiny means it won't be Vrata. So this is another thing that we need to understand. There should be no deceit in speech or deceit in mind while the truth is being spoken. So, that is what is the Sanatana Dharma and the Satya in Sanatana Dharma. That's what Vyasa has said in his commentary in a place. Yadi cha evam abhidhiyamana bhuto apaghatascha parehi syad na satyam bhavet papam eva bhavet. So if you speak the truth and the truth is harming someone, harming others, harming the beings, bhutopaghata, that is harming the beings, then na satya bhavet, that is not satya but papam eva bhavet. So satyam and papam also must be kept side by side, because satyam cannot be papam but satyam must be punyam. Now when it comes to speaking the truth as a moral ethical principle, this is not the implication. The speaking the truth can be a vice. No problem about it in morality, ethicality. But Satya Dharma, Satya Vrata will never be touched by papa, will never be touched by demerit, will never be touched by any vice. That is how the Satya Vrata is. And that is why Vyasa has clearly mentioned in that same commentary later तेन पुण्याभासेन पुण्य प्रतिरूपकेण कष्टतम प्राप्नुयात् तस्मात् परीक्ष्य सर्वभूतहितं सत्यम्ब्रूयात्. Sometimes the truth, there is a punyabhasa, there is abhasa, as if it appears to be punyam, as if it appears to be virtue, but it is kashtatama, it is pratirupa, it is opposite of punyam. And therefore we must speak such truth, so filtered, so framed, Sarvabhuta-hitam Satyambruyaat, that by your Satyam no one is hurt. Such is what Satya Vrata is. Now this is not an implication if you have to adhere to normative principle of truth. So there will be punya bhasam, that is virtue coated vice. Apparently, appearancely seems to be virtue, but actually inherently it is vice. Like sugar coated pills, some of the deeds are virtue coated vices. So you don't take them at face value as vice, but it is inherently a vice. And then appearancely it appears to be truth. That is punya bhasa. And therefore the dharma takes care of all these things. Then coming to another point, we often hear that not only truth is bitter, but truth is brutal. The truth is brutal. There is a brutality in the truth. Because by truth, someone will be hurt and someone will be almost hurt to the extent as if the person is dying. And therefore, in worldly realm, many times the truth is very, very, very brutal. It hurts someone so much that it almost, it is himsa. So we have heard this, even deaf people have heard this, that it is very difficult to face the truth. Truth is hard to be faced. Truth has no compassion. The truth is brutal. Not only the truth is bitter, but it is also brutal. So this is what we hear, and this is all with respect to moral, ethical principle of truth. Yes, such truth can be hurting. Such truth can be devastating. You can speak the truth and somebody's life will be devastated for entire duration of life. That is how the moral ethical principle of truth is. But the Sanatana Dharma truth is not like that. There is a Parama Anukampa, Sarvabhuta-hitam, Sarvabhuta-hitaya. It is for Hita of all the beings. It is for good of all beings. Therefore, Satya Vrata is totally studied with Anukampa, Parama Anukampa. So this is another aspect to be understood because of this Satya being a Vrata. Anyway, we were considering Satya as Yathartha Vachanam, Yathartyatvam, Yatharthata, Yatha Arthata, Yatharthata. So Yathartham was the predicate that we considered for truth. Because the truth must be truth. It must be true. And therefore, we come across in Saura Puranam 12.9 the definitions Yathartha Kathanam Satyam. So this is about Vangmaya truth. The truth to be spoken must be Yathartha. But we should know that there is also conduct on the track of truth. We can conduct our life on the path of truth. So what is the difference between speaking the truth and living the truth? The truth is something that should be lived. And there are so many noble people who live the truth. Conduct based on truth. So the truth is not just to be spoken. The truth can be a track for conduct of life. One can be trading the life on the track of truth. And there is something to live. The living itself can be totally truthful, subsumed by truth. So this is how we have to understand how Satya can become Vrata. And that's why many times we speak about some noble people that they lived the life on truth. Their life was truthful. That means it is not just the speech that is truthful, but very life, conduct of life itself is truthful. This is what happens to the life of seers and sages and saints. They live the truth. They live the life of truth. Their life is truthful. So, here we can see the expanse of the word truth, which can become a principle and not just something limited to speech. So, I recall in Darshanopanishad 1.9, whatever is seen, heard or smelled by the eyes and other organs of perception, what is expressed by that alone is true. That will not be otherwise. So this is how the truth is for a Vipra, as Darshanopanishad puts it. That's why there is big difference between we mortals having some perceptions and the saints having the same perception. Object will be the same. But the way we perceive it, because of gravities of mortality, and the saint who perceives the same thing at the same time without gravity of mortality, there is a big difference. So it is there in that case that they see the truth, they hear the truth, they sense the truth. We are not sensing the truth. It is because of vasana infested psyche consciousness and a mortality gravity is working on us. So, point is I am trying to develop clarity between Satya Vrata and Satya Vachanam. When it comes to truth as a moral ethical principle, it is only to be spoken. You are expected to speak the truth, that's all. You are not expected to live the truth. So, Satya is capable of becoming a life principle. Now, we will quickly come to this opinion that such essential truth is not for us. It is to be left for seers and sages and saints and noble people, rishis and munis. And we think that it is not meant for us. Because we cannot be in Satya Vrata. And therefore Vaidic Dharma, the philosophy in Vedic Samskriti and Vaidic Dharma has further analyzed Satyam. So we will slowly come to the plane of Satya that we can be practicing. We cannot be practicing what Harishchandra practiced in Satya Yuga. So we think Satya is not meant for our time, Satya is not meant for you and me. But the Dharma Shastra has analyzed Satya. So it is not an utopian concept whereby you will quickly conclude that it is not meant for us, we cannot be practicing it. Then does it mean that we should be always violating Satya to live our life? No, the Satya has been analyzed. So we are now coming to this classification of Satya, which is so important for us to understand. Satya is of two tiers. Therefore, Satya is said to be Dvividha, twofold. One is called Vyavaharika Satya, and the third is Paramarthika Satya. So what so far we were discussing was Paramarthika Satya, Sarvabhuta-hitam, etc., which is Paramarthika truth. So Dharma Shastra itself tells us about Vyavaharika truth and Paramarthika truth. Now when it is Vyavaharika truth, that means the truth on the plane of business activity of life. Now that cannot be taken for examination with parameters of Paramarthika truth. So we have to admit that the truth operates on two planes. One is called Vyavaharika Satya. And I recall a Smriti, a Smriti Grantha, which is known as Tattvadyotaha. Satyam cha dvividham proktam samvrutam paramarthikam samvrutam vyavaharyam syad nivrutam paramarthimam. So Satyam dvividham proktam, twofold. So one is on Vyavaharika plane, business activity of life, which is our life. Our life is completely having this channel of Vyavaharikata, and Vyavaharikataha we conduct our life. It is business activity of life. So there is one truth on this plane and the other one is Paramarthika. That means on the transcendent plane. So the truth is accepted on worldly plane, mundane plane. There is one kind of truth which we should try to adhere. And there is Paramarthika Satya, for which we need to be seers, we must be realized persons. We must evolve our consciousness to adhere to Paramarthika Satya. Point is, the Satya is of two types. Vyavaharika Satya and Paramarthika Satya. The spiritual seekers will be looking for a Paramarthika Satyam in their advanced stage of spiritual practices. But for us, there is also Satya on Vyavaharika plane, and this is akin to moral, ethical principle of truth. Then When philosophy speaks about truth, it speaks about three kinds of truths, three layers and tiers of truth. So that is also very interesting to take note of. Vyavaharika Satya, Pratibhasika Satya, Paramarthika Satya. Paramarthika Satya is essential truth, quintessentially truth. Then there is something which we just now considered was Vyavaharika Satyam, but there is also Pratibhasika Satyam. So we are given better discernment about the truth, which will come handy for us to be sincerely practicing the principle of truth or adhering to the principle of truth. So this is threefold classification: Vyavaharika, Pratibhasika, Paramarthika. So in Vyavahara, in business activity of life, somebody is somebody's father, somebody is somebody's son. And that's how the business activity of life is carried out. Like when you enter into contract, some statutory document, then you mention son of so and so, other or father of so and so, etc. Now that relationship is true, but it is Vyavaharika Satyam. That you are son of your father is a Vyavaharika Satyam. Your father is Vyavaharika Satyam, because that is convenient and it should be adhered to in our mundanity of life. So these are truth for a lifetime. So if you are a son of your father, for that whole life you are son of your father. If that is your father, that is your father for your lifetime. And therefore it becomes Vyavaharika Satyam, and then we definitely use this truth for our business activity of life. But what is this Pratibhasika Satyam? This is little a metaphysical insight. There is imposition that you are Chaitra is an imposition. Because conventionally you have been given name by your parents. And then you think that you are Chaitra. You are Maitra. Now, your name is not stamped or inscribed on yourself. It is given to you. As a matter of fact, the very I, pronoun I, therefore you say, I am Chaitra, I am Maitra. It is imposition. Asmita is imposition. So we impose on ourselves that I am so and so. Because the pronoun I itself is imposition. Now you should recall, we saw the Pratibhasika Chaitanyam, the Chittam becoming subjective entity, while the self is subjective entity, but then there is a Pratibhasika Chaitanyam, which is the Chitta, and then we impose our I-ness on the Chitta. So all that is with reference to me, I am so and so. I am this and I am that. This is all imposition. Because the Atma, the self as such, is totally immutable, untouched by all these things. So I am so and so is a pratibhasika satya, although it is vyavaharika satya. In business activity it is accepted that the Chaitra is father of Maitra and Maitra is the son of Chaitra. So in all statutory documents it would appear that way. So that would be accepted as a reality. But that is vyavaharika reality. But then there is pratibhasika reality, because Chaitra imposes the Chaitraness in him, Maitra imposes Maitraness on him, Chaitra imposes Maitraness on his father, and Maitra imposes Chaitraness on his son. So these are all impositions. Atma doesn't have name. Atma doesn't have form. But we call ourselves our form. This is me. What is that this is me? Where do we point out? We point out to our form. And that form has become me because of imposition, pratibhas, pratibhasikam. That is why it is called pratibhasika satyam. Then paramarthika satyam is essential truth. So these layers have been described in Shastra, that there is vyavaharika satya, pratibhasika satya and vyavaharika satya. Therefore, the business activity of life is also included as satya, and some aspect of satya, some form of satya, it is accepted to even business activity of life, that you are so and so's son or so and so's father. So the philosophers have opened out the concept of Satyam. This is so interesting to know. Otherwise it would all become very utopian principle, the truth. So that is one more point that I wanted to add today in understanding the Satya principle. Now coming back to where we were discussing now as to what is Satya, etc. Let me bring to notice some of the quotations which are very relevant here. In the Kurma Puranam, Pashupashamu Vimoksha Yogam, Yogam for liberation, is mentioned in Kurma Puranam, and it says, Satyena sarva avapnoti satye sarva pratishthitam yathartha katanacharaha satyam proktam dvijanihi. Satyam proktam dvijanibihi. So, Satya becomes Atma Vidya and Brahma Vidya. And therefore, the Satya avapnotim sarvam. Satya sarva pratishthitam. That is why Satyam is said to be the name of Brahma, divinity, absolute truth. Satyam Jnanam Anantam, Taittiriya Upanishad. That infinite principle is said to be Satyam. And we have seen earlier while discussing Ishvara, Vratam Pibantau, that the divinity is Satya, drunken. And of course I won't go into that once again. But Satyam is also name of Paramatma. Satyam is also description of Brahma. That's why Satyam Jnanam Anantam is the definition of Brahma. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma is what express statement in Taittiriya Upanishad. So therefore it is Satyena sarvam avapnoti Satye sarvam pratishthitam is what is the mention of Kurma Purana. Then Prashnopanishad 1.16 तेषाम असौ विरजो ब्रह्मलोको न येषु जिह्वम अनृतम न माया नेचेति. So, it is said that one who is adhering to Satya Dharma would reach Brahmalokam, the plane of immortality. So also Prashnopanishad in 6.1 says, Samulo va esha parishushati yo anrutam abhivadati tasmat naham anrutam vaktum. The sage says in Prashnopanishad that I never ever speak anrutam, which is in counterposition of Satyam. Because by anrutam, the whole truth is axed at very root. Mulo chedam. So this is how the Satyam has been discussed. I recall very clear, succinct description of Satyam in Mahabharata. Nahi Satya Savam Dharmaha. Ahimsa Paramo Dharmaha is what Mahabharata has said, but Satya is also a dharma which is not equaled by any other dharma. Nothing is as much dharma as much as Satya itself. And nothing is as danger fraught as much as Anrutam. So in the Adi Parva of Mahabharata, 74th chapter, so 74.105 of Adi Parva, Nasti Satyam Samo Dharmaha, Na Satyat Vidyate Param, Nahi Tivrataram Kinchit, Anrutadiha Vidyate. Nothing is as devastating as Anrutam, and no dharma is greater than Satya Dharma. So to evaluate this dharma, the same Adi Parva Mahabharata says in 70.103, Ashwamedha Sahasram cha Satyam cha Tulaya Dhrutam Ashwamedham Sahasradi Satyam eva Vishishyate. So Satyam is greater than the great sacrifice called Ashwamedha Yagnya. It won't, 1000 such Yagnyas won't equal Satyam. So it is greater than 1000 Ashwamedha Yagnyas, is what the description that comes in Mahabharata Adi Parva. Then in the Shanti Parva 162.24, Nasti Satyam Param Dharma Anrutat Patakam Param Sthitirhi Satyam Dharmasya Tasmat Satyam hi na lopayet. Never give up dharma, because Satya is the greatest of dharma, Parama Dharma. And nothing is as sinister as Anrutam, untruth. Then Satyam Satsu Sada Dharma, Satyam Dharma Sanatanaha, Satyameva Namasyet, Satyam hi Paramam Gatihi. Shanti Parva 162.4. Satyam Dharmo Tapo Yogaha, Satyam Brahma Sanatanam, Satyam Yagnya Parah Proktam, Sarve Satye, Sarvam Satye Pratishthitam. Shanti Parva 162.5. So this is how the Satya has been praised. That is, Satya Dharma has been praised by Itihas, Puran, Shastras. So let me tell you about, particularly we compromise with these principles in emergencies, in difficulties. Otherwise, we can be practicing these moral ethical principles, but when we have emergency times, difficulties, calamities, we quickly violate, we quickly derail ourselves from those track and save us by changing the track. But this is what is reality of life. In the light of life, it is very difficult to be professing truth, because in the light of reality of life, we will come across this, that more often when we give up the truth, we are saved. If we embrace the truth, we are finished. This is, in the light of reality of life, has to be accepted. And the Sanatana Dharma does accept this. Therefore, now we are going to take up to another very interesting dimension, which is based on what I just now said. That is called Apad Dharma. When there is Dharma Apada, when you have Apada, when you have difficulty, when you have calamities, be easily sacrificed with Satyam. So in Mahabharata, you get wonderful passage, rather a Upaparva. There is a chapter called Apad Dharma Parva. It comes in Shanti Parva. In Shanti Parva, you have 3 subsections: Moksha Dharma Parva, Raja Dharma Parva, Apad Dharma Parva. So when you are in difficulty, how the Dharma comes to you, or how do you practice Dharma when you have difficulties, when you have emergencies? That's a beautiful passage which Bhishmacharya has given to Yudhishthira in Shanti Parvam. That is called Apad Dharma Parva. So we are going to look into that precept which Bhishmacharya has given to Yudhishthira, called Apad Dharma, and that comes in Apad Dharma Parva of Shanti Parva. So we are going to embark upon it, but that is next time. So enough for the time being. Namaskar.